right? Before starting the chapter, first chapter called as appointment and qualifications of directors. So before what is our first chapter? Our first chapter is chapter 1 of the ICA syllabus. Chapter 1 of the syllabus. Chapter 1 of the syllabus, and it is nothing but chapter 11 of the Companies Act 2013. Chapter 11 of the Companies Act 2013. Companies Act 2013. Because chapter 1 to chapter 10 of the Companies Act are covered in your CA inter syllabus. So far as the Companies Act is concerned, we are discussing chapter 11. Chapter 11 of the Companies Act 2013. Okay, if you read the Bare Act, it is chapter 11. In our syllabus, it is chapter 1, because chapter 1 to 10 are already covered in the CA inter. Okay, chapter 11 of the Companies Act 2013. So this talks about the appointment and qualifications of directors. Appointment and qualifications of directors. Appointment and qualifications of directors. This is the chapter title. Okay, chapter 11 of the Companies Act, appointment and qualifications of directors. Appointment and qualifications of directors. Before starting the main provision, this chapter starts from section 149. This chapter starts from section 149. Before going to the actual provisions of the act, first we'll look at the important concept of directors. What is meant by director? What is the position of a director with respect to the company? What is the position of a director with respect to the company? Right. Just look at this. So what is the relationship of director with different persons? In the corporate ecosystem, different parties are there, and what is the relationship of director with respect to the parties? Okay, so first we'll say company is there, company. Okay, shareholders who invested money in the company, okay, and directors, okay, third parties with whom the directors contract, and company is liable to the lenders, and company is liable to the employees, and company is liable to the government towards the taxation. This is a contractual obligation. This is a contractual obligation. Now, since we are discussing the director's chapter, it is very important to understand the position of a director. It is very important to understand the position of a director. What is the relationship between director and the company? What is the relationship between director and the shareholder? And what is the relationship between director and the third party? And what is the relationship between director and this lender? And director and this government towards taxation? And director and this towards employees? Okay. So now we'll discuss what is the relationship of a director. There are many questions. So there are many questions arise in real life. I'll just discuss the few questions. So question number 1. So question number 1 is whether the directors are employees of the company. Whether the directors are employees of, whether the directors can be treated as employees of the company. Employees of the company. This is the first question. First and foremost question, this point. Whether the directors are treated as employees of the company. Okay. Next, that is the first point. Second point, whether the directors are treated as agents of the company. Whether the directors can be treated as employees of the company. Whether the directors, somebody says whether the directors are treated as trustees. These are many questions. Numerous case laws are there. So due to the time constraint and as it is not covered in the syllabus, I am not going by all the cases. I'll pick up only the important cases. But there are numerous case laws regarding the position of the directors. Different case laws will say different. There is no uniform case law. There is not a single case law which says that yes, directors are the agents, directors are the employees, directors are the trustees. There is no single judgment. Based on the circumstances, courts are giving different kinds of judgments. Okay. So whether the directors are treated as trustees, this is the first question. Whether the directors are treated as a trustee. Next, question number 3. Important question. Question number 3 is this point. Whether the directors are treated as agents. Whether the directors are treated as agents. Whether the directors are treated as agents. This is the first point. Whether the directors are treated as agents. Whether the directors are treated as agents. Next, question number 4. Question number 4. Whether the director is liable. Whether the director is liable Next question is the liability of the directors. So first question talks about first three sets of talks about position of the directors in the company. First three talks about position of directors in the company. Position of directors with respect to the company. Position of directors with respect to the company. Position of directors with respect to the company. This is the first point. And next we'll discuss what is the liability of the directors. So whether the director is liable, whether the director is liable for the, whether the director is responsible or liable, whether the director is responsible for the liabilities of the company, liabilities of the company, by financial liability for the loans taken by the company, for the loans taken by the company. This is the first point, whether the directors are liable for the loans taken by the company. Okay. Next question number 5. Whether the directors are liable, whether the director is responsible for tax dues payable by the company, well, responsible for tax dues payable by the company, tax dues payable by the company. So these are many questions to understand what is the relationship between the directors and the various parties. Okay, question number 5 and question number 6. Whether the director is responsible for the employee's statutory dues, whether the director is responsible for the employee's statutory dues, for the employee's statutory dues, for the employee's statutory dues. Okay, next. Next, whether the director is responsible, whether the director is responsible for the contracts entered by the company, for the contracts entered in the name of the company, for the contracts entered in the name of the company, for the contracts entered in the name of the company, that the director is responsible for the contracts entered in the company. Like that, n number of questions has arisen in the real life. Okay, now we'll discuss each and every question. What is the position of the directors with regard to the company? Okay, what is their role? What is their role? Okay, what is the position of the directors or what is their role, that we'll discuss. Next. So first question is this, whether the directors are treated as employees of the company. First we'll take up that question. First we'll take up that question, whether the directors are treated as employees of the company. Whether the directors are treated as employees of the company. Right. The answer is no. Directors are not treated as directors, are not the employees of the company. Directors are not the employees of the company. Directors are the officers of the company. They are not the employees of the company. Directors are not the employees of the company. Rather, they are treated as an officers of the company. Okay. This is the first point. Directors are not the employees of the company. First point, a very important point to remember. Directors are not the employees of the company. Directors are treated, directors are officers of the company. Officers of the company. They are not employees of the company, they are officers of the company. First point. So next question comes, is, sir, as a layman perspective, for a common man, he was treating the officer and employees one and the same. What is the technical difference between officer and employee? So you are saying director is not employee, director is an officer. What is the difference between officer and employee? And the position of an officer, 2 points. The position of an officer is more powerful than the position of an employee. The position of officer is more powerful than a position of an employee. Director has more power, at the same time director has more accountability. Okay, so with power comes is the responsibility. With power comes is the responsibility. Okay, with power comes is the responsibility. When compared to officers, when compared to employees, the officers will have more power. The officers will have more powers, and at the same time, they are more responsible. They have more responsibility and accountability. They have more responsibilities also. This is the point. So more powers is a positive, boss, no doubt about that. It is a positive point. But without responsibility, power will not come. This is responsibility, is negative point. Okay, being a director, it is not that you will enjoy everything. You will have more powers. At the same time, you are accountable to everybody. You are accountable to everybody. Okay, even though some cases says directors is different and company is different, in CA Inter you might have discussed about separate legal entity, corporate will and all those things. But in real life, directors are made liable. They are not treated as separate from the company. Okay, the difference between the directors and the company is blurred. If whatever you read in CA Inter, that may not be practically possible. Practically, many courts has held directors liable. Many courts has held directors liable. Okay, right. So therefore, with the power comes is the responsibility and accountability. With the power comes is the responsibility and accountability. First point. Okay, when compared to the officers, when compared to employees, the officers will have more powers and at the same time they have more responsibilities also. First point. Okay, sir, what is the difference between these officers and employees? So here the comes is, since the directors are not the employees of the company, they are also not as servants. Employees are servants. You can also say servant and master. Employees are servants. Servants is an employee. Employee are servants of the company. Okay. So what is the implication of this? What is the implication of this? When I say directors are not the employees or servants of the company, what is the implication of that? Okay. So what is the effect of that? What is the effect that directors are not treated as employees of the company? First point is that when they are not treated as employees, when they're officers, directors are in a commanding position. Directors are in a commanding position. Okay, as the directors or officers of the company, not normal employees, not just employees of the company, employees of the company. The directors will be having controlling interest. The directors has control, has command over the company, has command or control over the company's affairs, 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 control over the company's affairs. Directors are officers, not just employees. So therefore, they have a control over the company's affairs. A normal employee may not be having that much of control, but he is an officer of a company. Officer is having more power and more control. That is the first point you remember. They are having more control and command over the company. Accordingly, shareholders should not try to micromanage the duties of the directors. Shareholders should not try to micromanage the directors. So here the point is, no doubt, shareholders are the real owners of the company. No doubt, it is their money which is invested in the company. No doubt, if the company incurs losses, shareholders will incur losses. No doubt about that. But still, shareholders has to give only overview of the duties of the directors. They should not micromanage. Micromanage means interfering in the day-to-day affairs of the company. Okay, so shareholders at the most, shareholders can instruct the shareholders can give only overview of the duties of directors. Okay, that means they can only indicate what to do but not how to do. Shareholders can indicate only what to do but not how to do. Not only indicating what to do, but also if you are also instructing how to do, it is called as micromanagement. Interfering in each and every small step, interfering in each and every day-to-day affair, that is not possible. Even though shareholders are the owners, they cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. Their duty is to appoint the directors, and they give the directors overall responsibility. So director, what is the overall responsibility of the directors? To better manage the company's money, to better manage the shareholders' money, to ensure that the shareholders' money is not misapplied. That's it. Shareholders has to give broad overview of the duties of the directors. They should not specify each and everything. You should purchase goods from this person. You should purchase goods at this price. You should purchase the goods at this quantity. This kind of instructions is called micromanagement. Shareholders should not do that one. What the shareholders can do is that, boss, this is our money. Take it this 100 crores. Okay, we want to do the telecom business. Do the telecom business to the best extent possible, and try to fetch maximum profit as maximum profits as possible. That's it. Okay, what kind of employees to be recruited, from whom the goods has to be purchased, to whom the goods has to be sold, at what price the goods has to be purchased and sold. All these they should not interfere. Am I getting the point? Directors are not the employees. You cannot interfere in their day-to-day affairs. Okay. Shareholders can give only overview of the duties of directors. Shareholders cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the directors. Cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. That means, practically speaking, even though legally shareholders are the owners, practically the company is in the control of the directors. It is the directors who are controlling the company. It is the directors who are controlling the company. Okay. So directors or officers, they are not employees. Furthermore, in the second, third question, we'll discuss directors are the agents, not employees. So for an employee, you can say what to do and how to do. For an agent, you should only say what to do, but not how to do. Emma, for an employee, you can say what to do and how to do. But for an agent, you can instruct only what to do, but not how to do. Left the freedom to the direct agent. He will decide what is best. He will decide what is the best way of doing the business. As a shareholder, you can instruct the directors to do what business. I want to do the telecom business. How best to do the telecom business? Left to the shareholder directors. Don't interfere in them. Okay. If at all you are not satisfied with the directors, if at all you are not satisfied with the directors, just remove them and appoint the new persons. So long as you are continuing the directors, you cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. As simple as that. Okay. Right. So therefore, directors, shareholders cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. This is the important point. Shareholders cannot interfere in the day-to-day affairs of the company. If the shareholders does not satisfy with the directors, they can remove it, but they cannot continue and they cannot handhold. They cannot handhold the directors. That means that shareholders cannot say the directors that do this thing, do that thing. Don't instruct each and every small thing. Shareholders should not instruct each and every small thing to the directors. That is the point. Okay. So directors, shareholders should not try to micromanage the directors. Micromanage means interfering the duties of the directors. Interfering in the duties of the directors. This is the first point. Emma, there are some case laws on this chapter which we'll discuss in the subsequent chapters. There are practical questions in the subsequent chapters. So while the consent provision arises, I'll discuss these basic principles. Whatever is the basic principles I am doing, the examples for these basic principles will see in the subsequent chapters, wherever it is relevant. Okay. So examples for this we'll discuss the subsequent chapters, wherever it is relevant. Okay. Next, that is the first point. When I'm saying directors are not the employees or servants of the company, you should not try to control them. Shareholders are not the bosses and directors are not the servants. That is the first point. Okay. Next. So directors are the officers of the company and they are not the employees of the company. Right. Next. So here the question comes is whether a person can occupy both the position of a director and the employee. The answer is yes. Okay. A single person can occupy the position of a director as well as an employee. Can occupy the position of a director as well as an employee. This is the point. A person can occupy the position of a director as well as an employee, but simply being a director of a company, cannot become an employee. Okay. So with the company, director has dual relationship. So there are two types of directors normally discussed in this chapter, in this company law, that is executive directors or non-executive directors. So far as the executive directors is concerned, there is only one relationship. Emma, executive directors and the company. There is only one relationship. Sorry, non-executive directors. If the director, if a person is simply appointed as a director, he is treated as a non-executive director. For executive director, we have to specifically indicate. Be clear. If a person is appointed as a director without mentioning whether he is executive director or non-executive director, he is treated as a non-executive director only. For executive director, you have to specifically mention. Emma, are you getting this point? Hello? Few voice replies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir.
Right. So if nothing is specified, by default, directors are treated as a non-executive directors. By default, directors are treated as a non-executive directors. There is only one relationship between one contract between the director and the non-executive directors. That is, what is that contract? Contract for professional services. Contract for professional services. That is the only point. Okay. Contract for professional services. So executive director is the service provider. Non-executive director is the service provider. And company is the service receiver. That's it. and company is the service receiver. And company is the service receiver. Okay, client and a CA, client and a CA. CA is the service provider. Client assessee is the service receiver. If you receive any income tax notice, client should come and say, "Sir, I have this income tax notice. Please go and represent on my behalf." That's it. As simple as that. Assessee should not indicate that, "Sir, please quote this section in the discussion in the case law, or please quote this example, this evidence." Assessee should not try to micromanage. If the assessee knows very well about the Income Tax Act, why should he engage the CA? The moment he engages the CA, assessee should give complete freedom to the CA regarding how to argue in the Income Tax Department. Am I correct or not? Hello?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Assessee should give complete freedom to the CA. He should not micromanage, saying that, "Sir, use this evidence, quote this section, quote this case law." If you know very well, then why you came to me? As simple as that. So therefore, look at the freedom. What is your object? This notice has to be closed. That's it. Leave it to us. Leave it to us. Don't tell me how to do it. Tell me only what you want. That is, don't tell me how you want me to do it. Okay. So tell me only what you want. Not leave it to me. How to do it? It's my own choice. Okay. Right. So therefore, non-executive directors are only service providers, and companies a service receiver. So beyond that, there is something called as executive directors. In addition to the non-executive directors, we have some concept called as executive directors. Executive directors. Executive directors. So executive directors and the company. Executive directors and the company. So here, the executive directors are whole-time directors of the company. There are two relationships are there. Regarding executive directors and the company, there are two relationships are there. The first relationship is contract of agency. Contract of agency. Contract of agency. So according to this relationship, executive directors are treated as the agents of the company. They have a right to contract on behalf of the company. Executive directors are treated as an agents of the company, and company is treated as a principal. Company is treated as a principal. Executive directors are treated as agents of the company. Company is principal. And on top of that, you can also have a contract of employment also. Contract of employment also. Contract of employment also. So in this contract of employment, you are the employee. Yes, you will get all the provident fund benefits, employee state insurance, all the benefits you will get, HRA, etc. Employee and the employer. Employee and the employer. Okay, employee and the employer. Both relationships are possible at a time. A director can at a time hold both the relationships. A director can at a time hold both the relationship. Okay, but simply being a director, you cannot become an employee. Sir, is it possible to become both a director and employee? The answer is yes. For that, you need to have a separate contract of employment. You need to have a separate contract of employment. So these two contracts are separate. You have a different relationship with the company in these two contracts. On one side, you are an employee of the company. On the other side, you are also an agent of the company. Okay, so in between the company and the shareholders. Okay, so what is the difference between this being agent and employee? Okay, when the company wants to deal with the third party, this directors has an authority to enter a contract with the third party. Being an employee, you cannot enter into a contract. An employee does not have a power to enter a contract on behalf of the company. An employee does not have a power to enter into any contract on behalf of the company. Directors are the agents of the company. They have a power to enter into contract on behalf of the company. Okay. So in between the relationship between, so far as these outsiders are concerned, directors are treated, executive directors are treated as agents. Executive directors are treated as agents. Whatever the directors enter into contract with the third party can file a suit against the company if something goes wrong in the contract. Okay, because as per the contract of agency, even though agent has entered into contract with the third party, it is the principal who is liable. This you might have read in CA Inter itself. Okay, as per the contract of agency, for any contract entered by the agent, it is the principal who is liable. Okay, for any contract entered by the agent with the third party, principal is liable. So directors are entering into a contract with the third party, and if something contract breaches, third party has to file a suit against the company, not against the directors, because principal is liable. being a director, being an agent of the company. Look at this point. Being an agent of the company, the director has the power. The director has the power to bind the company by his acts, to bind the company with the third parties, to the third parties, to bind the company to the third parties. Okay, director has the power to bind the company. If you are a normal employee, you does not have a power. If normal employee does something, for that company is not responsible. But if a director does something, company is responsible. He is acting on behalf of the company. Okay, he has the power to bind the company. He has a power to bind the company. Okay, so with regard to the third parties, directors are treated as an agents of the company. And with regard to the company, since they are employees, now the company can instruct what to do also, how to do and what to do, more command, more supervision. Emma, since the directors are also treated as an employee, like whole-time director or managing director, they are also responsible for day-to-day affairs. Emma, what is the implication if a director is also acted as an employee? Because he will be having day-to-day affairs responsibility for day-to-day affairs, responsibility to execute day-to-day affairs. These fellows does not have that responsibilities. These non-executive directors does not have responsibility. They are only service providers, advisors. Once in a while, they will come to the board meeting and they will render their advice. They will not look after the day-to-day affairs of the company. Emma, are you getting till now? Hello? Emma, are you able to understand whatever is explained till now? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So these are the basics. Nothing is covered in our ICA study material, but being a practicing professional, being an expert in our company law, okay, you should know all what is the position of the directors. Okay, so non-executive directors, they are only service providers. They will render their expert advice, expert knowledge to the company. Okay, they will not be responsible for the day-to-day affairs. So if executive directors are there, they are both agents and they are also employees. As an agent, they have a power to bind the company with the third parties. As an employee, they are responsible for the day-to-day affairs of the company. Okay, being an agent of the company, the executive director, being an agent of a company, an executive director has the power to bind the company, to the third parties. Okay, next. Being an employee of the company, an executive being an employee of the company, he is responsible to implement to execute the day-to-day affairs of the company, to execute or manage the day-to-day affairs of the company, Okay, while you are appointing a normal director, while you are appointing any director, non-executive director, there is no detailed agreement. Here the contract is very brief. So that means company is asking their expert advice. That's it. Expert advice. Contract is very brief. When the contract is entered with the managing director, or whole-time director, this contract is very extensive. And comprehensive. Emma, very extensive, very comprehensive. Because they are an employees of the company now, you can list out their day-to-day responsibilities and their liabilities. If something goes wrong, what is their liability? It is more responsibility. That means you can instruct more to them. Not only managing the company for the good profits, you should also instruct them how to manage the company. So here only what? Here what and how both. Okay, being an executive director, the agreement of managing director with the company is very extensive and comprehensive. In detail, you can specify what is their responsibilities. In detail, you can specify. Right. Being an agent of the company, an executive director has the power to bind the third parties. Being an employee of the company, he is responsible to execute or manage the day-to-day affairs of the company. Okay, being a service provider or a professional, they are neither responsible for the day-to-day affairs of the company. Look at this point. Okay, So being an agent of the company, being a service provider, they are okay. Being simply a service provider, being simply a service provider, a non-executive director, a non-executive director, a non-executive director can neither bind the company, with the third parties, can neither bind the company with the third parties, nor nor he is responsible for day to day, affairs of the company, day-to-day affairs of the company, The relationship between non-executive and director of the company is very thin. The relationship between non-executive director, between non-executive director, and the company, is very thin. Between non-executive and the company is very thin. The relationship is very thin. The relationship between non-executive directors and the company is very thin. Okay, neither they are day-to-day responsibilities, nor they have power to bind the contract. Only touch me not relationship. Emma, do you understand? Touch me not relationship. Come and take the sitting fees and give that fees. As simple as that. Okay, right. So very thin relationship, touch me not relationship between non-executive directors and the company. Okay, right. So even within the non-executive directors also there is something concept called as independent directors that we'll discuss. That concept is altogether different. The independent directors are non-executive directors only, but the responsibility is completely different. That we'll discuss. So therefore, I'll clearly specify non-executive directors other than independent directors. Non-executive directors other than independent directors. Emma, don't confuse. Independent directors has more accountability. Independent directors has more accountability. Independent directors has more accountability than simply non-executive directors. Okay, so like non-executive directors, independent directors also not responsible for day-to-day affairs. They can also not bind the company. But independent directors has more over monitoring responsibilities when compared to the non-executive directors. Okay, right. So that we'll discuss later. Independent directors, that we'll discuss later. Okay. Right. We have a separate provision in the Companies Act, section 149, subsection 4 discusses with the appointment of independent director. 149, subsection 6 discusses with the disqualifications of an independent director. There we'll discuss. Okay. So I'm very clear. It is about non-independent directors. Okay. Right. So this is the relationship between directors, employees, and this point. Next, so executive directors. So Emma, by default, if nothing is specified, by default, a director is treated as a non-executive director only. Okay. At the time of appointment, if nothing is specified, the director is treated as a non-executive director. The director is treated as a non-executive director. Okay, because the forms are completely different. For appointment of director, we need to file DIR forms. We need to file DIR 12 forms. DIR 12 form to be filed. DIR 12 form to be filed. DIR 12 form to be filed. For appointing a whole-time director. For appointing a whole-time or executive director. For appointing whole-time or executive director. Whole-time or also called as executive director. For appointing whole-time or also called as executive director. Form MR1 to be submitted. Form MR1 to be filed. Form MR1 to be filed. Both are separate chapters. Emma, in this chapter, we are discussing about the appointment of non-executive directors. This is covered in our chapter 11. Emma, whenever I am discussing chapter numbers, it is as per the Companies Act only, not as per the ICAI study material. Okay. So in real life, the chapter sequence as per the Companies Act is relevant, not as per the Companies Act. Sorry, not as per the ICAI study material. This is chapter 11. And this management, this is covered in chapter 13. This is covered in chapter 12. Sorry, 10, 11, 13. Chapter 13. Okay, appointment and qualification, appointment and remuneration of managerial persons. For both, we have a different chapters. Dealing with non-executive directors, different chapters. Dealing with executive directors, different chapters. Their procedure of appointment is different and their responsibility is different. Okay, so if you simply appoint a director, by default, he is treated as a non-executive director. Emma, right? Emma, are you clear till here? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. So that is the point. So both are altogether completely different topics. Okay. Next. So this we have discussed. Directors are treated as an employees of the company. Directors are treated as employees of the company. So here where the comes here, this is where the problem comes in. Whether the directors are treated as trustees of the company, whether the directors are treated as a trustees of the company. Okay, so here the comes question. So though some case law says directors are trustees, we should not blindly take directors as a trustees. We have to go by the circumstances. What is the circumstances? What is the fraud done by them? What is the mischief done by them? Why it is treated as a trustees? Okay, so it is not blind. There is no blanket rule or blanket statement that directors are trustees. Some courts will consider that directors are not trustees. Some courts will consider that directors are trustees. You have to look at the circumstances of the case. Okay, right. So next question, whether the directors are trustees, whether the directors are trustees. Okay, technically speaking, legally speaking. Okay, technically or legally speaking, whether the directors are trustees of the company, whether the directors are trustees of the company, whether the directors are trustees of the company. This is the question. Okay, whether the directors are trustees of the company. So technically means legally. As per the legal, if you look at the legal provisions, if you look at the provisions of any act, technically, what is meant by technically, ma? What is meant by technically? As per the provisions of law, as per the provisions of law, strictly as per the provisions of law. Okay, strictly as per the provisions of law, strictly as per the provisions of law, strictly as per the provisions of law. Technically, directors are not trustees. Directors are not trustees because they have appointed under the Companies Act, not as under the Indian Trust Act. There is a different. There are differences between trustees and the directors. Strictly as per the provisions of any law, directors are not trustees. Directors are not trustees. Directors are not trustees. The following are the differences between directors and trustees. I'll show you the differences. There are many differences, but to be brief, I'll show you one or two differences. Okay, these are all background information. Whatever I am teaching today's class, none of this is relevant for the exam. This will not come in the exam, but highly relevant for your professional career. Before reading the director's chapter, you should know what is the position of the directors. Okay, right. So we are not here to say, we are not here to know what is there in the act. We are here to save the client when something goes wrong. Am I correct or not? Client will expect to save the client, not to just know the provisions of the act. Am I correct or not? Hello.
Correct, sir.
So therefore, we are not here simply to know what is the provisions of the act. We should know what is the underlying principles, how to save the client. Okay, right. So trustees and employees. Sorry, trustees, directors. Trustees, directors. Okay, trustees, directors. So first difference is that in case of trust, in case of trust, in case of trust, the property of the trust is held in the name of trustee. The property of the trust is held in the name of trustee. Okay, trustee is the beneficial owner. Legally, trustee is the owner. The property of the trust is held in the name of trustee. Okay, legal owner. But in case of directors, the property of the company. Okay. In case of company, the property of the company is not held in the name of the directors. The property is held in the name of the company. The property is held in the name of the company. Okay, right. The property is held in the name of the company. Company is the legal owner. Company is the legal owner of its property. Okay, directors has a control over the property, but they are not the owners. This is the first point. Okay, so whatever asset you purchase, the asset is in the name of company only. It will not be in the name of directors. Okay, though the directors have signed any contract, they will sign for and on behalf of the company. Directors will sign. For and on behalf of the company, directors will sign. So therefore, they are doing on behalf of the company. They are doing on behalf of the company. Okay, so they are not the owners. Okay, that is the first difference. And another difference, trustees are, in case of that, the property of the trust is held in the name of trustee. Okay, so trustee enters a contract. Trustee enters into contract with the third persons. Trustee enters into contract with the third persons in his name. The contracts with the third persons in his name. Emma, in his name. Trustee enters into contract with the third persons in his name. So therefore, trustee is personally liable. Trustee is personally liable to the third parties. Personally liable to the third parties. For anything done on behalf of the trust. 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 Okay. For anything done on behalf of the trust. This is the point. Trustees to directors. Trustee enters into contract with the third persons in his name. Therefore, trustee is personally liable to the third parties for anything done on behalf of the trustee. For anything done on behalf of the trust. Okay. Directors enter into contract. Directors enter into contract with the third person, with the third parties, with the third persons, with the third parties in the name of the company. 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 Therefore, it is the company. Therefore, the company is liable to the third parties. Company is liable to the third parties. Therefore, the company is liable to the third parties. Directors are not liable to the third parties. Emma, for everything there is an exception. For everything there will be an exception. There is no doubt about that. I'm just discussing about the general rules. Emma, do you understand? I'm just discussing about the general rules. There are many cases where the directors are made personally liable. No doubt about that. But just I'm telling about I'm explaining the general principles. Okay, great. That is the point. Directors enter into contract with third parties in the name of the company. Therefore, the company is liable to the third parties. Directors are not liable to the third parties. Are not liable to the third parties unless except in special circumstances. Except in certain circumstances. Except in certain circumstances. This is the point. Okay, this is the difference between trustees and directors. Therefore, if you look at the provisions of the Indian Trust Act, which cares about the responsibilities of the trustees and the powers of the trustees, the powers of the trustees as per the Indian Trust Act is different from the powers of the directors as per the Companies Act. So therefore, strictly speaking, directors are not treated as a trustees. That is the point. Technically, if you look at the provisions of the law, directors are not treated as a trustee. But judicially means as per the court judgments. Judicially means as per the court judgments. As per the court judgments. Okay. But judicially, many times, many courts, many courts, many countries, many times, many courts in many countries, many countries regarded directors as trustees. But judicially, as per the court judgment, many times, many courts in many countries regarded directors as trustees. This is because though legally some technical, though there are some technical differences, between Emma, what is meant by technical or technology? So strictly speaking, technology is a non-core activity. Today we are all simply running after the technology, but strictly speaking, technology is a non-core activity. What is core is our human talent, not the technology. Emma, for me, what camera I am using is a non-core activity. What is the subject I am teaching is the core activity. Do you agree or not? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So this is because though there are some technical differences, between trustees and directors, So nevertheless, there are many similarities also. There are many similarities also between the trustee and the directors. Okay. So in case of trust, it is called a settler. In case of trust, a person called, in case of trust, the the settler or the donor, the settler or you can say donor, settler or also you can say donor. Okay, the settler or donor, trustor relied on the direct, relied on the trustee, relied on the trustees, relied on the trustees' conduct, relied on the trustees' moral conduct, not just legal competence. Emma, not just legal competence. Emma, if you know that a particular person is very intelligent and very fraudulent, will you employ that person as a director? Obviously, the answer is no. Emma, am I correct or not? Hello, few voice replies. If you know that a person is very talented, but that person is very fraudulent, will you recruit that person? Are you not looking only the talent? You are also looking the character also. Am I correct or not? Am I yes or no?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
So therefore, we are not only looking at the competence, we are also looking at the character. So before giving money to a particular person, boss, manage this trust for the pilgrims, for the devotees. Okay, manage this trust. We are giving crores of money. We are giving crores of money. So we are relying on the character, not just the competence. Okay, so rely on the trustee's character also. Character, a character also, in addition to the competence, character also. So that means trustees occupied a fiduciary position, trustworthy position. Trustworthy position. The settler or donor related on the director's character or good faith, director's conduct, director's trustees personal good faith. Okay, related on the trustees character also, not just competence. In a similar manner, while entrusting their money, while entrusting their money to the directors, the shareholders also, shareholders has entrusted their money to the directors. Entrusted means handing over. Technically, entrusting means handing over. While handing over their money to the directors, who is handing over to whom? Shareholders are handing over their money to the directors. Shareholders are handing over their money to the directors. Shareholders are handing over their money to the directors. So while entrusting or handing over their money to the directors, the shareholders, okay, the shareholders also relied on the character of the directors. Relied on the character of the directors. Relied on the character of the directors. So therefore both the trustee and the director occupies a fiduciary position. Fiduciary positions are positions of trust. Emma, what is meant by fiduciary position? When you occupy a fiduciary position, you have to exercise utmost diligence and care. We have to be very careful. We should not simply behave like an employee. We have to treat that it is our company. We have to treat that it is our money. Okay, we should have more diligence and more monitoring and more carefulness, more skillful. Okay, more accountability. Okay. Therefore, both the trustee and the director occupies fiduciary position or positions of trust. Okay, this is the difference. Emma, do you understand? Though there are differences, though legally there are differences between trustee and directors, in many cases, Emma, I said only many cases, that not all the cases. Emma, are you clear? Many cases, not all the cases. The difference between successful practicing CA and the failure practicing CA lies in knowing what are the exceptional cases where the court has not regarded the directors as trustees and where the court has excused the trustees. Am I correct or not? If there are 100 cases, in 90 cases, courts has regarded directors as a trustee. Out of 100 cases, in 90 cases, court has regarded trustees as a directors as a trustees. Accordingly, directors are made liable. But in 10 cases, court has not regarded directors as trustees, and court has discharged or relieved the directors from their responsibility. That 10 CAs who won that case, they will be successful. Am I correct or not? Hello?
Correct.
So that is the point.
So correct, sir.
So therefore, many times court has disregarded, but there are some cases, you have to identify those cases. What is the loophole there? Under what circumstances court has disregarded the directors as trustees? Court has not considered the directors as the trustees. Identify those cases and try to utilize those cases with your client. Okay, that is the term. So therefore, normal CAs or normal company secretaries or normal lawyers, they will lose here. Those who read just for the sake of examination, there will be many. Those who just read for the sake of examination, they will lose this kind of cases. Okay, many a times. Okay, right. So therefore, if you go beyond that, Okay, this is the difference between trustees and directors. Though legally there is a differences between trustees and directors, still many cases courts has considered directors as the trustees. Courts has considered directors as the trustees. Both occupy the fiduciary position or a position of good faith. Both occupy the fiduciary position or a position of good faith. Am I right? So this is an answer to our second question. This is an answer to our second question. Whether the directors are treated as trustees. As per law, no. Directors are not treated as trustees. As per the court judgments, yes, directors are treated as a trustees. Okay.